Welcome. Today, we're going to dive into an idea that starts out super simple, but trust me, it ends up questioning the very nature of our physical reality. We're going to look at the whole concept of form itself and how it might be way more flexible than we think, all starting from one powerful question.
Just let that sink in for a second. It's such a cool thought experiment, right? If the essence of water can totally change how it looks and feels, from a solid block to a flowing liquid to basically invisible vapor, all while staying H2O, what does that imply about everything else in the universe? Including us.
The craziest thing is, the foundation for this entire cosmic exploration is actually something we all learned back in grade school science class. It's a principle so basic, we kind of forget just how profound it really is.
Yeah, we all know this one. Water can be solid ice, it can be a liquid, or it can be steam. They look and feel completely different, but the water molecule itself, it hasn't changed one bit. It's the exact same substance. It's just expressing itself with different levels of freedom.
So, if the molecules are identical, what's actually changing? What's the one thing that separates the hard, unmoving nature of ice from the total freedom of steam? Well, the answer is surprisingly simple.
That's literally it. When the molecules are packed together really, really tight, you get a solid. When they loosen up a bit, you get a liquid. And when they just spread way, way out, you get a gas. The form is all about how close they are and how much they're sticking together. Now, let's see how this one little idea starts to get a whole lot bigger. Okay, so here's where we take that principle and we just blow it up to cover everything. If the state of water is just about spacing, then what does that say about the chair you're on, or the device in your hand, or even your own body?
This number, it's just staggering. Every single atom, the building block of all physical stuff, is 99.9% empty space. Quantum physics shows us it's just this tiny little nucleus with electrons zipping around in this huge energetic void. So the stuff we think of as solid, it's not really solid at all. And this right here, this just flips the whole script. What we see as a solid object is really just structured space. What we think of as a fixed permanent form is actually just a temporary pattern. And what we call matter, it's really just the strength of the force that's holding that pattern together.
Cohesion is the magic ingredient. It's this invisible glue that creates the illusion of something being solid. It's kind of like the director of a dance, telling all the little atoms how close they need to stand together to create the temporary show that we call form.
And this is where it gets really personal. Because if the universe isn't actually solid, if everything is just patterns of energy and space held together by a force, then doesn't the same have to apply to us? So let's run with that water analogy, but this time, let's apply it directly to ourselves. If our bodies are playing by the same physical rules as everything else, then maybe, just maybe, our physical form is just one possible state of being.
Okay, so here's the crucial point. What if our physical body is simply consciousness in its ice phase, a really specific, condensed pattern? And if that cohesive force, that glue holding the pattern together, were to just relax, could our form melt or even evaporate into something way more subtle?
When you look at it this way, all those ancient kind of mystical ideas get a whole new light. Suddenly, things like teleportation or shapeshifting, they don't seem like just magic or some weird metaphor anymore. They start to look like natural extensions of a basic physical principle, just rearranging atoms in space. Now, if a form can dissolve and then come back together, the possibilities become absolutely mind-bending. Just think about how water vapor can condense and freeze into any shape mold you put it in. What could be possible for a human form that has become that fluid? Seriously, think about what this means for healing. If the body is just a pattern, then a disease could be seen as just a flaw in that pattern. The ability to dissolve and reform could mean you could reconstitute the body back to its perfect, healthy blueprint. And it's the same idea, right? Any physical limitation or deformity could be seen as just a temporary state. The potential to return to a state of wholeness becomes a real possibility if form itself isn't really fixed. And this just takes the concept to its logical extreme. If the physical form is truly fluid, then even something as fundamental as gender could become an optional arrangement of this same underlying consciousness and matter. Okay, so if all of this is, at least in theory, possible according to the laws of physics, What's the missing ingredient? What is the force that's actually directing this whole process? Well, the answer isn't in physics. It's in consciousness itself. It's the operator that can potentially change all the settings. What this suggests is that the only thing keeping us locked in our ice state is our own belief system. It's our deep, deep identification with this specific physical body. We're solid because, well, we believe we're solid. And that leads us to this incredible payoff. The idea that when your consciousness is no longer limited by identifying with the physical form, it becomes the master of that form. The body stops being a prison and starts being a vehicle that consciousness can totally command. So, let's just tie this all together. The journey we've been on really boils down to a few core ideas. Reality is mostly space. Form is just a temporary illusion held together by a force. Transformation is just rearranging that space. And our limitations only exist as long as we identify with a fixed form. When consciousness steps up, form can become fluid. So at the end of the day, this perspective puts consciousness right in the driver's seat as the main creative force in the universe. Matter is just the medium, like clay or water, and consciousness is the sculptor that gives it its shape. And that leaves us with one last, really personal question to think about. If you weren't limited by the form you have now, if you could truly dissolve and reconstitute your physical being based on your own intention, what form would you choose to experience?